Good morning, everyone. Today is, in fact, the fifth lecture, okay, in the series Signals and Systems. So far, any doubts? Would like to discuss some points. Anybody? So the last class, what we learned? Anybody would like to summarize? This is your class, okay? Your learning, your career, your long-term interest. Okay, so you need to talk, discuss, analyze. You need to think deeply about all this in order to gain mastery. So you need to talk, man. You guys are not talking. Open up. Vaishnu Devi, I don't know, Varalakshmi. What you have learned in the last class, can you summarize, put in words? Okay, can you be little more expressive in giving your ideas out? Okay, I would like to hear some voice. I've been talking from one end. Monotonously. Okay, so more kind of reciprocation is essential. So one of you can just summarize, just take a lead. Manikumar is talking regularly and saying, oh sorry, something like that. So then, let's see. Okay. Yeah. Now, anybody? What we have learned in the last class, can you summarize? What did we learn? So we learned about, you see the slides and then we learned about ramp signals, parabolic signals, what is a connection, okay? By integrating a ramp, how do we get a parabolic signal? Then differentiating, then we also learned the application of shifting theorem in the impulse signals, okay? By taking a signal and multiplying with delta t minus 10, what happens is you'll be getting your this shifting theorem. Okay, so shifting property of impulse signals. So at t minus 10, you have a signal existing. We learned this only at t equal to. This is delta t minus 10. So then when you multiply this signal with any continuous waveform, only this part is going to come out. So that's what we learned. So in this case, it's going to be more like e power minus a 100. Okay, I hope you can recall that only one part is going to come out. So we learned about that. Then we also discussed something about sinusoidal waveforms. I hope you can recall. Okay. So we learned about shifting. Then we learned about this kind of impulses. Then complex sinusoidal signal is what I wanted to introduce you to the last class. Can somebody tell me what is this slide in fact tells you about? Can you summarize? Anybody in the class? This particular slide. Let's go through the slide and let me know what you are seeing. The key idea I said is the most important idea. Super important, they call it. Why this slide is important? Can somebody express in words? Are you hearing me clearly? What I'm saying? Whether my voice is audible? One of you? Manikumar? Manikumar?
Sir.
Yeah, what is it we learned in the last class? This slide, what is this slide tells you about? Can you recall what we learned in the last class?
Sphere form to sinusoidal waveform, sir. How it will convert?
Okay. Fine. So we learnt about something called Fourier series concept. Any periodic waveform you take and you would like to represent it in terms of sine waveforms. Okay, so in order to achieve that, one sine is not going to be sufficient. One sine will not be a best representation. Instead of that, what do? You take the summation. Okay, the summation of sine with frequencies. They call it as harmonics with different frequencies. For example, this is 1 second, 1 cycle. 2 seconds, 2 cycles, like that. So you add all those signals, you ended up in a square waveform. So this is a very powerful idea. I said in the last class. It's called the Fourier series idea. We'll learn about it later on. Okay, just now just try to think about this for a minute. Okay, so that's the idea. Then we also talked about something called complex exponential signals. Okay, wherein you talked about Laplace transformation. You recall that S is equal to alpha plus j omega minus alpha plus j omega t. Okay, so naturally you'll be getting a different set of signals like this. How do we visualize all these signals? So that's the key there. So now in today's class, I would like to spend some time on the mathematics part of these sinusoidal waveforms and all this. Okay, for that you require some knowledge. Okay, of complex systems, complex signals. Okay, complex numbers. Most of you could have got some idea. Okay, they could have learned this in the last year, first semester, I think. Let us try to spend some time to recall the key concepts. Okay, so first of all, the first question you need to talk, man. You guys have to talk. Tell me what is a natural number. Okay, and something called real number. What is rational numbers? What is irrational numbers? Can you give an example for each one? Natural numbers 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, you get the whole numbers. Nah? That one. Real numbers includes both negative and positive. Okay, what's the difference? You don't have for real numbers. You don't have any fractions. Like for example, integer numbers. This is integer numbers. Integer numbers, you have no fractions. So you got -1, 0, 1, 2, 3 like that. Okay, rational numbers, can you give examples? For example, 1.33. Yeah, 1.33, 1.5. You got fractions. For all rational numbers, you have fractions. But the key point that you have to understand, these fractions are terminating. For example, 1.333, you get the same number can be repeated. That is allowed. Or the fraction will be terminated. Say 1.35, 7.35. That number will be terminated. The fraction part will be terminated. Or otherwise, the number will repeat. It will be keep on coming to the same number. That's allowed. So rational numbers are key. Okay, so rational numbers are decimals and fractions you get it. Okay, so decimals and fractions. The fractions, the number will terminate as well as the number will repeat also. Both are allowed. What about irrational numbers then? Pi is a very classic case of irrational number. What is the problem with this? The number will not repeat. It will be going, keep on, the numbers will be going like this, the fractional part, and you will not be getting repeated numbers like this, or the fraction will not terminate also. Okay, so square root of 2, for example, pi. Okay, these are all irrational. Irrational is a problem in signal systems. So when we are learning about discrete sinusoidal signals, the periodic property of discrete sinusoidal signals, we should know what is irrational. So that's why I'm trying to emphasize on this. Okay, now can somebody tell me what is irrational number in words, your own term? Why is Ahmed? Why is?
Sir.
Yeah, Faiz, tell me what is irrational number? Irrational number is what? Fractional number, but our problem is 1.327
Yes, sir.
5 6 2 1 4. It like that. It will keep on going. Okay, there won't be any repetition also. Fractional part. It will be keep on going and forever. So that is one aspect. Second aspect is you'll be getting. Okay, so numbers will not be repeating like this. What is rational number then? Why is Ahmed? Rational number is also a decimal. Fractional part will be there, but it will be terminated like this. 1.32, 7.32. The number will be terminated. Okay, here it's terminated. Fractional part is terminated. Or otherwise, the fractional part will be keep on going. Okay, the same number will be coming, but it will be keep on. There won't be like this. There won't be what you call the numbers here is repeating, but here it is not repeating. That's the key point. Irrational number, it won't repeat. For rational number, it will repeat numbers. So sometimes you may get something like this. Okay, that is allowed. So that's the difference between rational and irrational number. What is integer numbers? Whole. Integer means there won't be any fractional part. -1, -3, 2, 3. Okay, the inverse. All those numbers will be there. Okay. So that is integers. So normally integers can be represented like this. Z. They put the Z and they put this. They put the Z and they put like this. Okay, this is an integer representation. For what about complex numbers? Complex numbers are something like this: A plus JB. Okay, there will be a real part and an imaginary part. Okay, this is a real part, and there is an imaginary part. So J is going to play a key role there. Okay, what is J square? J square is equal to -1. Remember that. Okay, so this A plus JB form is important. Now, our focus today's class is on the sinusoidal waveforms. So we are talking about the building blocks. Okay, in the building blocks, we have learnt about so many signals. Can somebody enumerate, list out the signals we have learned so far? What's the first signal we learned? Impulse. Second one? Step.
Step signal.
Yeah.
Step
Third
signal.
one? Yeah, ramp.
Ramp signal.
Fourth one?
Parabolic signal.
Parabolic. Very good. So these three are connected. Okay, impulse, step, ramp, parabolic are all connected. Then we also learned about triangular waveforms. In the last class, I introduced to complex exponential.
Initial wave.
Yeah, complex exponential signals. Okay, so today's class we are trying to learn some of the basics of the sinusoidal waveforms. Okay, and this is a kind of a mathematical background. Okay, so that's what we are aiming for. So that's where we are in now. Okay, so be very clear what we are trying to learn, what are all our objectives, how we are going about. Okay, so you should see, once I discuss about all these, you need to go deeper and understand it very clearly. Okay, so we need to solve some problems also. For everything, we need to work out some problems. Okay, so I will share some videos on problems also. So we'll be learning that. But right now, let us focus. So let us take an example. Okay, so we are talking about something like a kind of triangle like this. Most of you see, those guys who are all quite conversant with this, just keep watching. Okay, so those who are not feeling comfortable, please pay more attention. Okay, so what is this? This is like a right triangle. Okay, this is a hypotenuse, and this is the three sides here. Now, can somebody tell me what is the sine theta of this? So always remember
B by
this.
A.
So
B by A.
yeah. So always remember this formula. So ka tua. Okay, if you remember this easily, you can work out. Okay, what is this O? This O indicates opposite side. So there is an angle here. Opposite to that angle, there is a side. Okay, so that is B. And this is H is hypotenuse. Hypotenuse, most of you will be very clear about hypotenuse. And this side, you call it as the adjacent side. Why it is called opposite? Because it is opposite to the angle. Okay, this angle is theta. Is opposite. This side is opposite to the angle, and this side is adjacent to the angle. Adjacent means very near. Okay, adjacent to the angle, just close to it. And this side is the hypotenuse. Once you remember this, so what is so sine theta? Sine theta is equal to opposite by hypotenuse. So then naturally it's going to be B by, this side is A, B by A. Cos theta is what? Cos theta is adjacent by hypotenuse. So adjacent by hypotenuse. Adjacent side is C, C by B. Comfortably you can write this. So the same manner tan theta. So most of you will be quite comfortable with this, but still many of you are not quite comfortable. I think you need to a little bit think carefully and work out. Okay, so this is a sine theta by cos theta. What is that's going to be opposite by adjacent. Okay, so naturally hypotenuse will get cancelled. Okay, therefore we are going to get B by C. Is it clear? B by C, opposite by adjacent. That's the tan theta. So you got three angles. Now tell me, if I keep increasing, Okay, if C is going to come down, C is going to reduce, this width is going to reduce. Okay, initially it is somewhere here, and then it's gradually is going to reduce. If it is going to reduce, what will happen to the cos theta value? Cos theta value, initially it will be equal to the full value. Then if you go to decrease key C, the cos theta is going to decrease. It's directly proportional. So likewise, if we are going to decrease B, sin theta is going to decrease. Okay, we're going to decrease the length. Okay, then that means the angle is going to come down. Okay, the different angles, you can think of different angles. Like here, 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 like that. So when the angle is going to come down, means B is going to decrease. So you have to understand it very clearly. So the key point that I would like to convey here is you need to visualize everything in terms of a unit circle. Okay, that's important. So if you look at the unit circle, so easily you can visualize it. So what happens here is, yeah, now take this circle. So there's totally, this is the 2 dimension, okay? This is X and Y. So this is X and Y dimension I'm talking about, okay? So I'm looking at a unit circle like this. I'm looking at a unit circle. So the circle radius, let us imagine, is R is going to be equal to 1. Radius is equal to 1. Remember that. Okay, so in that case, you take any angle here. Okay, easily you can visualize that. You can start from this point, this 0. Okay, this is 1, 0 point. Then 1, 0. It's a unit circle, na? Therefore this is 1. This length is 1. Unit circle. Radius is equal to 1. Therefore this is 1, 0 point. And here you can go to what? It's going to be 0, 1 point. And here you can come to what? This is going to be minus 1, 0. Okay, and here it's going to be 0, minus 1. And again you can come back to 1, 0. Can everybody clearly see that? So naturally in the unit circle, so the corresponding X and Y axis. Okay, for example, this is the this is in fact this is more like a vector. I'm looking at each point in the unit circle, and this is the first vector I'm looking at. For the first vector, the Y component is 0, the X component is 1, and the vector moves, okay, to this point. So any point on the circle, you have to understand, any point on the circle, exactly over the circle, maybe I put a points like this. Okay, so this is the first point I'm looking at, second point, third point, fourth. When I'm going to traverse like this on the circle, unit circle, okay, I get different points like this. Keep this in mind. So this, in fact, we'll be using it heavily. Okay, this kind of unit circle for discrete sinusoidal signals. When you are going to study, you'll be sampling your signals. In fact, you'll be studying it. When you are sampling, you are in fact talking about this kind of points on the unit circle. Okay, so let us talk about that later on. But right now, just imagine. You have to understand this very clearly. Okay, so now I have different points. Okay, I have different points now. Now, this is the first point. Okay, so that first point, you know that. So there is a corresponding Y component is 0, the X component is there. Now, all these you can visualize now like this. Okay, there is a Y component, there is an X component. This is my vector. So naturally, you can sense if this hypotenuse value is equal to 1, with the radius is equal to 1. What is this? This is going to be Y and this is going to be X. You agree with this, every one of you? So naturally, we are talking about sine and cosine waveforms. Okay. So look at this. What is sine theta here? What is sine theta? It's going to be only Y by 1, opposite by hypotenuse. It's going to be Y by 1. This is opposite side, just opposite to this angle. That's why opposite. This is hypotenuse. Therefore, it is Y by 1. That is Y. What is cos theta? That's going to be X by 1. Again, it's going to be X. So easily you can visualize sine and cosine thetas are nothing but the corresponding X component and the corresponding Y component. Okay. For example, initially at 1, 0, what is the sine component? It's going to be 0. Sine theta is going to be 0, primarily because There is no y component. What about cos theta? Cos theta is going to be 1. What is the corresponding angle? Angle is going to be equal to what? In this case, it's going to be 0. So for 0-degree angle, sin theta will always be equal to 0 and cos theta equal to 1. Now the angle increases. Okay, can you see it clearly? Now if that is the case, how can I visualize this? Based on angle, you can clearly now can visualize. How do you visualize the angle? We have different angles now. Okay, so I can draw all those angles. That's the first one. Theta equal to 0 angle. So the vector is going to be like this. Every one of you, please follow it. Those who are feeling very comfortable, please leave it. Okay, you can see later on you can join with the lecture. Those who are feeling uncomfortable, please listen. Okay, this is theta equal to 0. The second one, what is the case? Theta equal to, let us take pi by. Okay. Theta equal to pi by 4, theta equal to pi by 2, theta equal to, so this is going to be 4, 2 pi by 4, 3 pi by 4. Okay, and theta equal to pi, okay, theta equal to pi by 4. Okay, and theta equal to 6 pi by 4, or otherwise you can write 3 pi by 2, then equal to 7 pi by 4 theta. The last one, theta equal to 8 pi by 4, which is nothing but 2 pi. So clear? So now we can see that one by one. So let me mark these values. Okay, where do you locate corresponding angle? So this is theta equal to 0. So when theta now started increasing, where you get theta equal to pi by 4 somewhere. You can see theta equal to pi by, theta equal to pi by 2 here. And theta equal to 3 pi by 4 here. Pi here. 5 pi by 4 here. Then here it is 6 pi by 4, 3 pi by 2. Then 7 pi by 4. The last one. So clearly you are seeing the key points here that there is when you are traveling over the unit circle like this, okay, you have totally 2 pi distance. That's the circumference of circle is what? 2 pi. So this 2 pi is what you are dividing into 8 different points. Okay, so the first one 0, this is pi by 4, this is pi by 2. Okay, gradually you are seeing it clear fractions. 8 pi by 4, 8 pi by 4, all those things you are seeing. So if this is the case, then you can clearly now see for theta equal to 0, pi by 2, pi by 4, 2 pi by 4, 3 pi by 4, 4 pi by 4, 5 pi by 4, 6 pi by 4, 7 pi by 4, and 8 pi by 4. These are all the angles I have taken. Okay, theta. Same way, we can also travel in the negative direction also. Okay, so for example, I can look at this angle. What is this angle? I can travel like this. This is minus theta. Okay, can somebody tell me what is for minus theta, what's the corresponding minus pi by 4 angle? Okay, theta equal to 0, minus pi by 4 angle. What's the corresponding value here in the positive angle?
7 pi by 4.
That's going to be 7 pi by 4. Clearly you can visualize because that's this value. So this is what the 7 pi by 4 angle is. Okay, therefore you can see immediately that it can be negative as well as in the positive direction. So likewise for 3 pi by something like 7 pi by 4, it's going to be pi by 4. What is 2 pi by 4? The negative direction. That's going to be here. You can clearly see it's going to be 6 pi by 4. That's going to be 3 by 2 pi. Okay, this is going to be 3 by 2. Okay, so that's what this angle. These two are related. These two are same, one and the same. Okay, so that you can visualize that clearly. Okay, so the key point that you have to understand here is, if you travel on the circle, okay, it is one full revolution, you're going to get 2 pi radians. So if it is one full revolution, you get 2 pi radians. Okay. Now, 2 pi radians is equal to what? 360 degrees. So every one of you are aware of this. So you should know how to convert between radians to degrees and then degrees to radians. This is one key skill you should do. Without much difficulty, you should be in a position to immediately visualize the corresponding angle in theta as well as in the radians. Okay. So, for example, if I give you pi by 4 radians, okay, you should be in a position to tell exactly pi by 4 radians in degrees means 360 by 2. Okay, therefore it is going to be 45 degrees. So you should be in a position to clearly visualize it. So 2 pi is equal to 360. Therefore, this is equal to 360 by 2 pi is going to be equal to 1 always. Remember that. So naturally, I want values in degrees. So which particular formula I use here? I use this. This is 1. Okay? Therefore, pi by 4 into 360 by 2 pi can fetch me the corresponding because these two will get cancelled. Okay, pi pi. So I'll be getting 45. So you should be in a position to clearly see this. If I give you angle 135 degree, and if I ask you to compute the corresponding radians, you should be very clear that you should be using the second one. 135 2 pi by 360. So you will be getting around something like 3 pi by 4. Right. See it, it's going to be 270 by 360. 360. Okay, therefore it is 3 pi by 3 by 4. Right. Okay, so you should be in a position to convert this quite comfortably. That's another idea you should remember. So the second point which I would like to convey here is, look at these cases. You know this number E, okay? It's an Euler number, exponential Euler number. What is E? The value is 2.71828. It's an irrational number. So now see, can you see why irrational number is important? It's now coming here. See, E is an irrational number. And you know, in mathematics, we can represent any number. For example, 10, I can represent it as 8 plus 2. Or otherwise, I can represent it with 5 plus 5. Or I can say it's 5 into 2. Okay, or otherwise 100 by 10. I can represent the same number in many ways. The same way, this E 2.71828 can be represented in terms of a series. It's a very powerful idea. In fact, in signals and systems, a good understanding about mathematical series, particularly Maclaurin series, will help you a lot, okay, in working out problems. Okay, so just take a look at this 2.71828. I am representing it in terms of this. Okay. So look at this 1 by 1 plus 1 by 1 plus 1 by 1.1 into 2. Okay, it's not 1.1 into 2. Okay, it's a 2 factorial, 3 factorial, 4 factorial, it goes on. So when you add all those numbers, you'll be getting something like this 2.71828 like that. So the same way e power x. Okay, I'm now taking this number 2.71828, that's irrational number, and I'm raising it to power x. So how that series will look like? 1 plus x squared by 2 factorial, x cubed by 3 factorial. If you keep plugging for any real number or complex number, when you plug in here, and if this series, if it's expanded, you're going to get that number. Okay, so you can represent the same number in 2 different ways, e power x, and this is also order. The same manner, you might have learnt about cos x series, sin x series. Okay, so the one important information that you should not forget is, instead of writing like this numbers series, expanding the series like this, you can write it in a very short form notation like this. So this is called a kind of a summation notation. Okay, n equal to 0 to infinity 1 by n factorial. You know this very well. So when you expand this, what happens? Initially, I will be getting 1 by 0 factorial, because we are going to plug in n equal to 0 here first. Then the summation indicates addition, plus. Second number is n equal to 1 it's going to take, because the number n, now it's going to vary from 0 to infinity with all intermediate values, 1, 2, 3 up to infinity. So naturally n equal to 0 first you will take, you plug in, you get the first number. Then summation, plus. Second number is 1 factorial. Third number is 1 by n equal to 2 factorial. So it goes on. Okay, so that's what in fact we have written here. See here, 1 by 1, 1 by 1 plus 1 by 2 factorial, 1 by 3 factorial, 1 by 4 factorial. The same thing is what we are doing it, but in a very short notation. So this notation, mathematical notation, is super important. Okay, in the signals and systems theory, DSP, next subject what you are going to learn, as well as digital control theory, image processing, everywhere this kind of summation notation is very important. Shorthand notation, series, you are make it somewhat short by writing in this particular crisp and a kind of brevity. Okay, short notation. So now in the same manner, e power x can also be written like this. What is this? X by x power x. Okay, x power n, sorry. X power n by n factor, with n varying between 0 to infinity. Now can you see clearly how it works? N equal to 0, x power 0 by 0 factorial, plus x power 1 by 1 factorial, plus x power 2 by 2 factorial, it goes on. Okay, so that's what this series in fact indicates to you. E power x is equal to 1 plus x square by 2 factorial, like that. The same number is what you are going to get here. Okay, if you expand this series, okay, extend by, so you need to memorize this. This is an important idea. Memorize this, don't forget. In solving problems, it will be quite useful.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, their sin x expansion is x cube by 3 factorial, no, sir?
Yeah. Sin x.
Yep, sir. Sin x is equal to x minus x cube, no, sir?
X cube by 3 factorial,
Yes, sir. Yeah. You written x square by 6.
Yeah, fine. That's all.
Okay.
You check it. So, but idea is the same. The idea is the key. Okay. So yes, now sir. The key point is 3 factorial. When you put what you get, 3 into 2. Therefore, it is right. Okay. There should be 3 then. Okay. So now if you look at this, you can see how I am writing the cos x series also in the summation form. -1 whole power n x 2 power n 2n divided by 2n factorial. Okay, once you write this, immediately you can see, you can start plugging in n equal to 0 value, n equal to 1, and you will be seeing clearly that you will be getting this expression. The same manner for sin x, you are going to have this series. Okay, -1 whole power n. So -1 the whole power 0 first, then x, okay, 2 power n, 2n is 0 plus 1 divided by 2n, again n equal to 0, it's going to be 1 factorial now. So this is going to be x. So that's the first term in sine, we are getting an x here. Can you see it? So the second term, the same manner you have to work out. N equal to 1 you plug in. So it's going to be -1 power 1 x, okay, 3n, 2 into 1 plus 1, it is going to be 3 divided by 2 into 1, 3 factorial. Is it clear? Every one of you follow this clearly. Now I'm going to get the same number. Here it's going to be x cube by 6 is what I'm getting here. So understand this series in a very thorough way. So this will be quite useful to you. All the three terms, e power x, cos x, sin x series. Once you know this, then we can see what is a complex number. So most of you are quite comfortable with complex number like 1 minus 2j. If you plot this in the Cartesian coordinate form, okay, a is here, b is here, okay, or otherwise I can say my z1 complex number is going to enjoy 1 unit in the x-axis and 2 units in the imaginary domain axis. Okay, imaginary domain it's going to be what? -2. So therefore the waveform will be like this. -2 is here. Okay, this is 1. So this is going to be my Z. Okay, so this is going to be Z1. So likewise Z2 I can plot. Z2 is what? This is going to be my vector. 3 units here, 4 units here. J axis, BJ axis. Okay, it's A axis. So it's a complex conjugate. It's a complex plane they call it. Complex plane. In the complex plane, like a real plane, what we have seen, the previous case, XY coordinates, real. Now it's going to be complex because the y-axis is going to be imaginary. So naturally, you should know how to compute Z1 by Z2. How do you do it? What do you write here? Can somebody help me out?
Conjugate of 3 minus
Yeah,
3
you need
minus
to- you
4
need
j
to
by 3
compute
minus.
the conjugate. Conjugate means what? J equal to -j. You put that, you're going to get. So simply you have to plug in this value. Okay. So 3 minus 4j by 3. 3 minus 4j by 3 minus 4j is 1. So you can do that. This operation is valid. So simply you multiply these two, and you can get your solution comfortably. The same manner, 1 by Z1, if you want to compute, what do you do? Again, you have to multiply it with conjugate. Remember all this, what you have learnt. I'm just trying to recall this. So take few AB complex numbers and perform all these operations and be ready. Okay, B minus A, AB, A conjugate, B conjugate, A by B. Keep doing this. Okay. So now if I have a vector like this, a complex number vector, with a real part equal to 2 and the imaginary part is going to be 3. So then if I'm going to plot that, this is a vector, complex vector it is. So now what is the corresponding Z conjugate will give you? This is my Z. What is the corresponding magnitude of this vector? Can somebody help me out? What is the magnitude? It's going to be square root of this number. Square root of 3 square plus 2, hypotenuse. Okay, if you find out this, it's going to be 9 plus 4 square root of 13 is the answer. Okay, that's this value. That normally you call it as the magnitude of the any complex number. Magnitude. Okay. Now tell me what is Z conjugate. So this you can compute by taking 3 plus J2. Sorry, 2 plus J3 and the conjugate of this 2 minus J. And if you find out this value, okay, what you are going to get, it's going to be 2 plus 2, 4 minus J6 plus J6 minus of J square of 9. Can you see it? Minus of J square is going to be -1. It's going to be, it become +1. 4 plus 9 is what you'll be getting, which is 30. So this is one important formula you have to remember. Okay, what is that formula? Z, to take the complex number Z and multiply it with its conjugate, what you will be getting is what? Mod Z square. Okay, this is the magnitude of Z. Magnitude of Z is square root of 30. What you have got is 30. Okay, so it's the magnitude square is what you'll be getting. So these ideas are important. So what is the takeaway point from this particular slide? You should know about complex numbers. And you should know addition, subtraction, division, multiplication of these complex numbers quite comfortably. Okay, you should know when you are solving problems, you should be in a position to comfortably look into the signal and work out. Okay, so the previous slide, what is the takeaway point? You should know the series. What are all the 3 series you should know? E power x, cos x, sin x. And you should also represent it in form of a summation series like this. It's called summation series. You should feel comfortable in using this kind of summation series. Okay, so that's the second one. The third one is something like this. So in fact, you know that. So it's a complex number also, in the complex plane also, then you can represent your x and y coordinates like this. Okay, so if it is a complex number, JB like this. Then what is cos theta? Cos theta is going to be the real part of Z, the complex number. Okay, this is a complex number I'm talking about. And divided by the mod Z. Okay, this is a mod Z, magnitude of the complex number. So yeah, that is mod magnitude you compute using the hypotenuse. Okay, hypotenuse. So naturally, cos theta is going to be equal to what? A by R. R is equal to A square plus B square. So you should know how to move from rectangular coordinates to polar coordinates. Okay, so this kind of conversion you should feel quite comfortable. Okay, so R cos theta is equal to A, that's nothing but the real of Z. R sin theta is equal to B, is nothing but the imaginary of Z. So in a unit circle, okay, in a unit circle again we are boiling down to same idea. In the unit circle when R is equal to 1, this imaginary part is the real part, this imaginary is the real. Then we are talking about cos theta is nothing but the horizontal direction and the sin theta is nothing but the vertical direction. Okay, imaginary Z. Okay, so this is Z point. Okay, so this is Z is a complex number. So Z is a complex number. That's nothing but A plus JB. So this A signifies cos theta and this B signifies the sin theta. That's all. That's the idea. When you are traveling in a unit circle. Unit circle means R is equal to 1. The radius is equal to 1. The hypotenuse is equal to 1. The magnitude is equal to 1. The magnitude of Z is equal to 1. Then you are going to have A is nothing but the cos theta and B is nothing but the sin theta. The tan theta is B by A. Imaginary Z by RE of Z. Okay, or tan also you can work out like this. Okay, the corresponding theta if you want, then it is going to be tan B by A. Okay, so R is equal to A square plus B square and the theta is equal to tan inverse of B by R tan. Okay, so easily you can work out this. So then that's the idea. So this slides adopted from Fowler, Professor Fowler. Okay, so this is very nice slides. So you can see this, whatever we have discussed. So in the polar form, if you want to represent this, okay, rectangular form is what we are seeing. The polar form, the corresponding R is nothing but the magnitude, square root of A square plus B square. The corresponding theta is tan inverse of B by A. Okay, that's a polar and rectangular form. We should be in a position to convert from these two. So Z equal to R e power j theta. If R is negative, then it is not in polar form. So you can see the slides. Yeah, where you have two polar forms like this. R1 e power j theta 1, R2 e power j theta 2. Then if you want to multiply these two, magnitude you have to multiply and the corresponding angle you have to simply add. That's a complex mathematics. Okay, complex number mathematics. Power means simply you can add theta 1 plus theta 2. You can see it here. The same manner when you are dividing, divide the magnitude part, which is nothing but square root of A square plus B square part. Okay, so then e power j theta 1 minus theta 2. Should not forget this division. The same manner z power n and z of 1 by n or of 1 by n e power j theta by n. 1 by z2 is 1 by r2 e power j theta 2. We can take it to the numerator but simply change the angle to the negative side. Okay, 1 by r. So these are all something foundational mathematics you might have learned. Okay, this is what we see for a right angle triangle. Okay, corresponding formula r sin theta. If r is equal to 1, you are going to get b equal to sin theta, a equal to theta. R is this and tan inverse of this. Okay, then rectangular form, this is the form we are talking about, and the polar form is going to be this form. You can convert from this form to this form quite comfortably. Once you know, if I give you r, okay, then you know that it's going to be square root of a square plus b square. If I give you a and b, you can compute r. If I'm going to give you r, you can compute a. What is a? R cos theta. Theta also given to you. Okay, so then you can compute a. Can you understand how we are moving from one to another one comfortably? Everybody with me? Can somebody explain this form? Gayatri, what you are seeing here, how you convert from rectangular form? If I give you r e power j theta to e power j4, if I give you this, how do you convert to the polar form? The rectangular form, sorry. How do you convert it to rectangular form? How do you compute a and b? Formula is direct. Okay, r is given, cos theta is cos 4. So, Okay, maybe 4 pi, 2 pi, something like that. Okay, you can easily compute it. A and B is equal to R sin theta. So you can do it. Okay. So now you can try to remember these formulas, be quite useful. Okay, 1 by j is always minus j. 1 by j is minus j. Minus 1 is e power plus r minus j pi. This comes from Euler's formula. What is Euler's formula? E power j theta is equal to cos theta plus j sin theta. So put theta equal to plus or minus pi. Plus or minus pi. So cos plus pi is minus 1. That's all. Pi is sin pi is always 0. So this is going to be minus 1. All right. That's why therefore e power plus or minus j pi is minus 1. E power j 0 is 1. You see clearly cos pi is here. This angle. So cos theta is going to be minus 1. This is 0. So cos theta is going to be minus 1. Sin theta is going to be 0. So e power j 0 is this angle. So that's going to be cos 0 plus j sin 0. It's going to be 0 degree angle. Okay. 0 degree for 0 degree cos is equal to 1. Remember that. Okay. So j e power j pi by 2 is 0 plus j 1. Minus j cos minus pi by 2 plus j minus pi by 2 j minus. Okay. A plus j. See, for any real number can also be represented as a complex number simply by putting j0. This is a real number. This A is real, but I converted into complex by taking j equal to 0. Remember that always. So that's why this can be, this is feasible. Okay. So if A is real, A is less than 0, you are going to get this part, this real part. This is 0, this goes to plus infinity, this minus infinity. Therefore, A less than 0 means this part. A less than 0, the angle will be always plus or minus 1. Okay. So this angle is 0 angle, 0 degree. So that you have to remember. This is something you have to remember. Now we learned about this series, cos theta series. Okay, and I can represent it in terms of theta. Okay, in terms of theta, it's like this. Now if I plug in j theta, j sin theta, I have taken the sin theta series. Simply I have multiplied with j. What do I get? I'm going to get something like this. Something like this. Okay, this 3 factorial, 6 factorial. Now I also know that z is a complex quantity with exponent e, that Euler number, raised to the power j theta. Initially, when you raise to e power x, x can be real as well as complex, I said. I hope you can recall. So in that case, x can be j theta, complex theta. So in that case, what is the expansion series? J theta by j theta the whole power n by n factorial. This is what we learned. So you simply plug in this data, you will find out that, okay, you can do this work. Cos theta series, if you add with j sin theta series, you will get e power j theta series. This is a very powerful idea, super important. Okay, so when you add, see this value is what? E power j theta. This one will be equal to when you add cos theta series with j sin theta. Okay, so you can take it as a homework and do it, and you will see that. Okay, I think most of you will be aware of it. But anyway, just give it a try. Okay, how do you get that? Simply take this e power j theta, plug it in the series. You have 3 series, summation series. Summation series 1, summation series 2, and this is summation series 3. Take these 3 series and then compare. E power j theta is equal to cos theta plus j sin theta. E power minus j theta is equal to e power cos theta minus j sin theta. And therefore, you can deduce a formula for cos theta. E power j theta plus e power minus j theta divided by 2. Okay, so that's cos. Same manner, you can deduce the relationship for sin theta also. E power j theta minus e power minus j theta divided by 2j is what you'll be getting. So most of you could have studied all this, but anyway, again take a relook at all these things. Okay, so now let us think about the sinusoidal waveforms now. So in the last class, I mentioned that sinusoidal waveforms are useful to us primarily because any periodic waveform can be decomposed into time constants. That is one reason. The second reason, the most powerful reason, is we are now talking about systems, LTI systems. For these systems, one important property is if I give A cos omega t, okay, plus some pi 1. If the output, I'll always be getting B cos omega t plus pi 2. What is the key point that you are noticing in this? Can somebody tell me?
Same frequency.
That's a key point. Okay, it's a good interpretation. So when you are looking at the problem, okay, this is B, this is A. Definitely there is a change in amplitude. There is a change in phase. Okay, there is a change in amplitude, change in phase. But there is absolutely no change in frequency. This is applicable only to LTI systems. So in that case, if I have a signal, if I want to study about the response of an LTI system for a square waveform, what do? I'll convert it into a sum of sinusoidal signals. I represent it as sum of sinusoids, and then I can give one by one all these signals, sinusoidal signals, to my LTI system and study the response. All sine waveforms. If I add all those things, the output also is going to get added. I'll be getting the output way. Okay, so this is a very powerful idea in LTI systems. We'll be decomposing any periodic waveform using sine waveforms and then study for varying frequencies how the amplitude and the phase angle changes. It's a very powerful idea. For example, I'll be feeding a lot of sine waveforms with varying frequencies. But in the output, I'll be getting the same frequency. Whatever frequency input is there, output I'll be getting the same. Whatever input frequency, I'll be getting. Now, then I can plot a graph. But I know that there will be a change in amplitude in the output. There will be a change in phase. So, for example, if I'm going to study it for different frequencies like this, omega 1, omega 2, increasing frequencies, and the corresponding amplitude change, that I call it as gain. Output amplitude by input amplitude, you call it as gain. If the output amplitude is more than the input amplitude, you call it as the amplifier, amplification. If the output amplitude is less than the input amplitude, you call it as attenuation. And if I see the gain, if I'm going to get the gain like this, can you tell the nature of the system, anything?
Ramp.
If the gain is like this, for varying, increasing.
Ramp.
Increasing in terms of increasing. The input signal frequency is increased. Okay, one. This frequency is more, this frequency is more. I'll be getting more high frequencies. Okay, because I know that for representing this waveform, I require all these high frequency signals. In the last class, we learned in Fourier series. Okay, I introduced you. Now tell me, what does this graph indicates to you? Any intuition? Anybody's guess, fair guess? Not so easy, direct. But you're a little bit imagine it. When the input signal frequency increases, how my LTI system gain is varying? How my LTI system gain is varying?
Decreasing.
Yeah, it's decreasing. Okay. So naturally, this system, LTI system, is acting like a filter. Filter means what? It allows certain frequencies to gain, it gains something. And it allows certain frequencies, it will not permit certain frequencies, it attenuates. Okay, it allows certain frequencies and it will not permit certain frequencies. Attenuate certain frequencies. So naturally, here in this case, low frequency signals are being allowed, and high frequency signals, the gain is coming down. Okay, so naturally, it is acting like a low pass filter. You're getting the point what I'm saying? Low pass means what? Low frequency it will pass, and high frequency it will not pass. Okay, that's the idea. So you have to understand and imagine all these things gradually. But why I'm saying cause signals are so important is I can break any signal into cause signal, and I can apply it for LTI systems. For any waveform, I can choose cause as the main basis signal, and I can study the frequency response plot. Frequency response plot is just now we have seen. Different omegas, what's the corresponding gain? Different omegas, what's the corresponding phase? I can plot these two. Okay, different frequencies, different phases. So if I plot these two curves, then I am moving on to a realm called frequency domain realm. From time domain, see, imagine initially we started with sine signals in time domain. Okay, in time domain we vary. Now gradually we are shifting gears and moving towards frequency domain, wherein for LTI systems this kind of analysis are very, very powerful, very useful, and very, what do you call, application oriented insights you may get. A lot of insights you'll get for speech signals, image signals. Okay, so based on frequency domain analysis you gain a lot. Okay, so then look at this sine wave. So initially, what is the amplitude you are seeing? Can you see the amplitude, man? Anybody? What's the amplitude of this?
2, sir.
Its amplitude is clear. Can you see it, man? Because it's somewhat the coloring is not very bright. Still, you can see it. Good. Okay. So if I increase the frequency, see here, I'm increasing the frequency. Can you see what's happening? Number of cycles per second is going to increase. Okay. And what happens when the frequency increases? Carefully note down what happens to the corresponding time period. Time period is going to come down. Okay, when the frequency increases, 457 hertz, 470 hertz, and the corresponding time period is 2.13. But when the frequency is low, the corresponding time period increases. Okay, you see it? Time period is what? Between two peaks. Okay, this peak is going to repeat again and again. Now look at the corresponding phase shift also. I am giving a phase shift initially 0. Then what happens? Okay, initially at 0. Now see here, the cosine waveform exactly starts at 0. Maximum 0 degree angle. This is a 0 degree angle. The signal starts at t equal to 0 at 0 degree angle. Okay, that's what this meaning is. Now I am going to shift it. See, I'm increasing the shift. And you see it's going to move away from t equal to 0. Can you see it? It's going to move away from the t equal. There is a shift here, angular shift. So that's the idea. The waveform frequency will not change. When you are shifting the phase, there won't be any change in the frequency. But it's only with respect to time there will be a lag or lead. Okay. So the signal will be initially like this, somewhere here, minus phase shift. The 0 degree, how to see clearly. Then it's going to. There is a shift in it. But the amplitude will not change as well as the frequency will not change. When you are shifting the phase, the signal as a whole is changing. Okay, so you have to visualize it very clearly like this. See here, we are talking about cosine waveforms. And we know that from our unit circle where the signal will be. The signal will be initially for 0 degree. So instead of cos theta, I am going to take it as cos t. T is the running parameter. So t is not going to vary. Okay, t is going to vary. So different values t is going to take. Okay, now when there is no phase shift for cos signal, it's going to be A cos omega t without any phase shift. Okay, so in that case, it's going to be at t equal to 0. It starts at t equal to 0. So my signal will start at this frequency, cosine waveform. It's initially 1 because this value is 1. X coordinate is 1. Because that's the cosine theta. Cosine theta is 1. But now when I'm going to shift the phase shift, instead of starting at t equal to this angle, t equal to 0, I'm starting at this. So there is a phase shift. Okay, so naturally this is going to vary. The signal is going to have a kind of a lag or lead like that. So you have to visualize it intuitively, what's happened. So instead of starting at 0 for cosine waveform, I'm going to start it here and there is a phase shift. Likewise, the phase shift can be here or here also, negative and plus. Same way for sine theta, if I'm going to start instead of from this point, 90 degree point, okay, it's going to sine 0 degree. So initially at 0, then it goes on. That's the sine waveform. So initially at 0, the sine value is 0. Then it goes to and reach peak, pi by 2. Okay, that's the t value I'm talking about. It's a time t. Instead of theta, I'm going using t. That's the only difference. Instead of theta varying, t I'm going to vary. I'm going to call it as omega t. So this angle is now omega t. So that's going to vary. Okay. Can you see it clearly? Theta equal to omega t if I put. It's going to be cos omega t. So instead of theta varying, the angle theta degree varying, omega t is going to rotate. It's a kind of rotating sinusoidal waveform they call it. Okay, so now it's going to vary like this. Now sine waveform, it's going to be initially 0, t equal to 0, it's going to be 0. Then it reaches 1, okay, pi by 2, this angle. So that's the idea. So instead of that, I'm going to start somewhere from here. So then the signal waveform will take. Okay, so we are starting somewhere from. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, so I will stop with this. Any doubts so far? Any doubts? All right, you understand what we have been talking about? Are you getting some kind of insights? Yeah, Nitish. Understood. Okay. It's a very basic class, today's class. I put some kind of more like a tutorial-like session with basic mathematical background required for signal systems is what I have given. I think some more ideas we need to discuss, like linear algebra concept, something like dot product. What is the dot product and what we are doing when you are integrating something like this. All this we need to little bit study from linear algebraic perspective. I will introduce that in the next class and then followed by discrete sinusoidal waveforms and the periodicity property. That's how we are going to move ahead. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, bye.